Hello everyone and welcome to the Book of Knowledge. This is a brand new channel. This is my very first video. Right now I have 0 subscribers, but that's okay because here we go. The Book of Knowledge is a journey through the secrets of language, symbolism, mythology, religion, and magic. Especially magic. But not like magic, you know. I'm not gonna do card tricks. And I'm not gonna saw a lady in half. This is real magic. This book is the culmination of 18 years of study and research and digging and going down hundreds of rabbit holes. And each piece of this puzzle is a rabbit hole that you have to go down and search through all kinds of ridiculous nonsense to get little pieces of truth that you could pull out and put together. And at the end of it, you look at it and it's beautiful and it's simple and it's disgusting and it's terrible. But it is what it is. What it is the telephone game. Since the beginning of time, it's the skeleton key to the human mind. And it's everywhere. All the time. So what I'm going to do on this video, I'm going to read one section from each chapter of this book so you can get an idea of all the different ways this comes together. And keep in mind, this is a book about magic. You're going to hear about all kinds of different things, all kinds of different stories, fables, religions, myths, movies, all kinds of different things. But keep in mind that just like every piece of this puzzle is a rabbit hole full of more puzzle pieces and puzzles and puzzling pieces. You can't lose track of the original puzzle made of all these pieces, cut into pieces, mixed in with more pieces. So let's just get right into it. This is a section from chapter 1, The Principles of Magic. And we're going to start right at the beginning with, do you believe in magic? If you go far enough back into the history of our species, you will eventually reach a time before the concept of language existed at all. Humans uttered grunts and groans and sounds most likely very similar to the ones we use today, as much of our instinctual memory is stored in our DNA. People could not easily share thoughts and ideas or plan things and strategize in any organized or complex manner. It is not possible to even think about what it would be like to be human and not have language, because people think in the language that they speak, and therefore without language you cannot think, you can only imagine. Real magic is not sleight of hand or illusion. It has nothing at all to do with witchcraft or wizardry. The magician's magic is a trick and is meant to fool you. The witch's magic is meant to confuse you with symbols, potions, and rituals. The wizard's magic is meant to gain power by using knowledge to fool the people with wisdom. These archetypal characters are meant to keep you from knowing the truth about what magic really is. Real magic is language. Real magic is about putting your thought into another person's head, controlling or changing their thoughts, emotions, beliefs, or behavior. Enchantment is enchantment, or chant into plus ment, meaning mind as in mental. It's about changing someone's reality with your words. Words are whirling words that are spun by the intentions of the sounds of the speaker. Words are made of letters or allowers. that present both a symbolic visual idea and an audible sound that represents that idea. Letter means let her. It allows these symbolic ideas to be combined into tiny stories that invoke the feelings intended by the word. This is what we call spelling, as in casting a spell. The spelled word is then cast out audibly by the speaker. It is important not to misspell a word, because if you mispronounce the magic word, then you do not get the desired effect. Cast is used to make a mold, and a mold is used to form things that are reproduced in mass. Casting spells broadly over a large group of people is called broadcasting, and magic is about controlling others and the minds and reality of others in order to mold them. What is broadcast is called programming, which again refers to the controlling of the thoughts and the actions of others. Programming consists of information, which are the ideas that keep us in formation. The media is the medium, and the medium is someone who communicates with the dead. Reaching individual spirits is called channeling. So the medium uses different channels so the dead can receive the programming in the form that they prefer, or the form that will mold them into form. Words also have roots and stems like a tree. This refers to the ancient Druids who worshipped the sacred trees. There was the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. The spirit of the tree of life was the oak king who represented the life and fertility of the summer. The spirit of the tree of knowledge was the holly king who represented the knowledge required to survive the winter. This is why all religions celebrate their holly days during the winter solstice. The wood from the tree of knowledge gives us the logs of logic, the logos, and the Yule log. And the word truth comes from the tree of the Druids. The Druids were ruled by their high priests or shamans, who were the old crazy wise men from which we get our archetypal wizard character. They believed that the wood from the tree of knowledge, or the holly tree, contained the natural spirit of truth, logic, wisdom, and knowledge. They made wands from the branches so that what they spoke while they held it would come true. This explains why the broadcasting of the programming is coming from Hollywood. The words write and written come from sacred rites and rituals, and to write these rites to make something right is a ritual by definition. To curse at someone is to put a curse on that person. These dark spells invoke reality experiences of anger, sadness, or fear, which are motivations for submission to control. So when you write these rites and rituals and then write your name in cursive, you are cursing yourself into a reality of submission to the rites and rituals written. We call it signing, because a sign is a symbol, or the signage that signifies your unique signature written in cursive, as a curse to bind you under the principles of magic. The word grammar comes from the old French word grammaire, meaning to learn incantations. So we send our kids to grammar school to fill their skulls with grammaire, where they learn to read the signs, write the rites, and spell the words. Now we're going to move on to Chapter 2. Let us meet the letters that let her spell the words. And I think we're going to let's do the letter D. The letter D, the doorway to the dark side of the moon. The letter D is a pictograph of the first quarter moon. It represents the adversarial moon god. It is the devil, his demons, and their devious, deprived, disgusting desires and deeds. The descent of the dead and the decline deep down in the depths of the darkness and despair, deceiving, destroying, and devouring anything that is good, dividing, demolishing, and devastating everything. The D is said to come from the Greek letter delta, that resembles an equilateral triangle. Delta stems from the Semitic dale, meaning door or doorway. Dale comes from the Egyptian hieroglyphic of a door and of a tent. Delta is also the root of telta, meaning tent, and tilt, meaning slanted, and also meaning covered in cloth. The word tilt also means to hoist, lift, or raise. The Greek delta, the Semitic dale, and the Latin D are also all pictographs of a mountain or a mound. The symbol for delta is the symbol used on maps to mark the location of mountains. Scholars have traced the meaning of the letter D all the way back, and they believe that it is related to the doorway, a tent, and a mountain. Unlike the letter C, this time they are correct. However, there is more to the story. What does any of this have to do with the earlier statements that the letter D has to do with the moon and adversarial moon gods? In the Old Testament of the Hebrew Bible, Moses climbs Mount Sinai to see Yahweh, who he spoke to in a tent on top of the mountain. This is where Yahweh spoke to Moses and gave him the 10 Commandments. Yah and Jah are both references to the moon and moon worship. Within the Father God is the duality of the Sun God and the Moon God. Yahweh is a reference to God when he represents the moon or the negative side of his duality. The ancient Babylonians worshipped the moon god Sin as their father god. The moon itself was a boat that Sin used to sail across the sky. Sin was the father of the sun god Utu and the goddess of love and war Ishtar or Venus. Sin lived in a tent on top of Mount Sinai. In fact, Mount Sinai means the mountain of sin. Because newer religions demonize older gods, the name Sin became the word for doing anything wrong or evil. Also, we do not worship the moon as a father god anymore. So now the quarter moon represents the adversarial moon god trying to deceive you, seize control of heaven, and gain your worshipper's soul. So the letter D that is a pictograph of the first quarter moon also represents the entrance to the tent that Moses crossed through when he would meet with God, or the tabernacle, where God gave him the rules of right and wrong. This can also be described as the doorway to sin. This is why the letter D is overwhelmingly used in negative words. The letter D in regards to spelling can mean the moon, adversarial moon god, the doorway, usually some kind of paranormal or spiritual doorway, descent from enlightenment, or the negative aspects of duality, as can be seen in a mountain of negatively spelled words. Moving on to chapter 3, the numbers that numb us. Number 6, sex, passion, and hex magic. The number 6 is a pictograph of a snake coiled on the ground with his head raised in aggression. 6 begins with the letter S, that is also a pictograph of a snake prepared to strike. The symbol of this snake is related to the all-seeing eye. In ancient Egypt, the eye on the forehead, the third eye, or the eye into the soul, was interchangeable with the snake on the forehead. If you tip the number 6 on its side, it's a pictograph of an eye of a snake, or an eye with the brow lowered. This is the serpent of Saturn, or the evil eye. Both the snake and the eye are symbols of Saturn, but the letter S and the number 6 symbolize the snake that represents the deviant side of Saturn. The letter I represents the inner self, the soul, or the life force of something, and the letter X represents experiencing in the moment, indulgence, and giving in to sin. So the word 6 can be read to mean the nature of the snake to indulge in sin. The word 6 is a combination of the words sin and sex, and the symbol of the snake is also a phallic symbol of sexual indulgence. So 6 is the symbol of the sins of Saturn's snake, or the sexually seductive sins of Saturn. The number 6 is also related to magic because the 6-sided shape and the 6-pointed star are the hexagon and the hexagram, rooted in the word hex meaning 6. Hex can also mean to put under the influence of magic, to put a spell on. The hexagram is said to be highly powerful and important in witchcraft and wizardry. However, real magic is not witchcraft and wizardry, it is language and communication. And the belief in the magic power of the hexagram is the hex, or the 6, or the devious deception of the snake of Saturn. The 6-pointed star, the hexagram, was known as the star of Saturn. The star is made of a triangle that represents the man and an upside-down triangle that represents the woman. It represents the coming together of the duality of man and woman to create one. Now we know the star of Saturn as the Star of David, which is the star of division of God into duality. The hexagon is a 2-dimensional depiction of a 3-dimensional cube. A 3-dimensional cube contains 6 sides. The ancients believed that all of space and all of existence was contained inside of a black cube. The 6-sided 3-dimensional cube forms a 6-sided 2-dimensional hexagon that is the heart of the 6-pointed hexagram that symbolizes the 6th planet. Chapter 4, Understanding the Wheels of Time. We're going to read the section, The Ancient Year, the New Year, and the April Fools. In ancient times, people did not celebrate the new year at the winter solstice, but they celebrated it at the spring equinox. They believed that the birth of the sun was when it crossed the equator in March into the seasons of the sun. The year started with the house of Aries. This is why the names of our months are off by 2 months in etymology. Sept means 7, Oct means 8, Nov means 9, and Des means 10. However, September through December are the 9th through 12th months. If you start counting in March, then they are all correct. The ancients celebrated the new year on April 1st, which is 8 days after the spring equinox. The time of Aquarius and Pisces was considered to be the time outside of time. The sun god was dead, everything was cold and dark, and life in general, plant or animal, seemed to be non-existent. These are the 2 signs of water, and were thought to be both the primordial waters of chaos or non-existence and the womb that would birth the return of the sun god. Later, the calendar was changed because the sun starts moving north or growing, starting from the winter solstice, not the spring equinox. So today we celebrate our new year on January 1st, 8 days after the winter solstice. January is named after the Greek god Janus, who had 2 faces. One face looks back at the previous year, and one face looks ahead into the new year. After the calendar was changed and the start of the year was moved to January 1st, there were people who still celebrated the new year on April 1st. Some people didn't want to change their traditions, and some people simply didn't know because they had not heard about it. Over time, these people were mocked because they didn't know when the year started. They were called the April Fools, and this is why we trick each other today on April Fool's Day. Now I want to take a little break here to say that there's a lot of mind-blowing information in this book. And because this is my first video and I'm trying to make something happen here, I'm going to go ahead and give away a pretty big one. And this is one that's everyone's familiar with and doesn't know anything about. But I'm about to give you a really big piece right here. And there's plenty more really big pieces. Some make this look small. But we're going to move on now to chapter 5. which is the gods and the wanderers of the heavens. And the one I'm going to talk about is the all-seeing eye of God. The all-seeing eye is one of the most widely used and also one of the most secretive symbols of all. The all-seeing eye emerged thousands of years ago in ancient Egypt and then quickly spread throughout almost all religions and mythologies in one form or another. Many people associate the all-seeing eye with the Freemasons, who do use it heavily within their symbolism, most notably the symbol of the pyramid with the eye above it that is printed on the back of the $1 bill. The all-seeing eye is usually portrayed either above and between the sun and the moon, or above or within a pyramid. The Freemasons say that the all-seeing eye is simply a symbol that represents God, but they never explain how or why. The ancient Egyptians worshipped the sun god Ra as their father god. According to myth, Ra awakened one morning to find that his daughters were missing. Ra removed his eye and sent it to go find his daughters. His eye succeeded in finding his daughters and returned them to Ra. But when the eye of Ra returned, Ra had grown a new eye. The eye of Ra felt betrayed and was overcome with jealousy, and in a fit of rage it vowed to destroy mankind. The eye of Ra was convinced not to destroy mankind and became Ra's protector, who would act aggressively and violently towards anyone who opposed Ra's rule. The Egyptians also worshipped the sun god Horus, who was fighting Seth, the god of the underworld. Seth tore out Horus's left eye. His eye was healed and returned to Horus, who then gave his eye to his dead father Osiris to give him power in the afterlife. In Norse mythology, the creator god was Odin, also known as the one-eyed god, the wanderer, and the Allfather. Odin was a god of Saturn, and the word planet comes from the Greek word planetes, meaning the wanderer or a wandering star. Odin was said to be the wisest of all the gods, but he wanted to gain even more wisdom. Odin noticed a giant that was much more wise than all the others because he guarded the well of wisdom and drank from it every day. Odin asked the giant for a single drink from the well, and the giant agreed to let him take a drink if he would gouge out his own eye and throw it into the well. Odin, without hesitation, removed his eye and threw it into the well, took a drink, and because of his increased wisdom, he could see much better than ever before. It is common in media and entertainment for people to be portrayed with one eye covered, hidden, or encircled. It is believed by some that this is because many of the people who are prominent in these industries are Freemasons, and they are just using Freemasonic symbolism in their works. So what is the symbol of the single eye? What does it mean? Where does it come from? What does it have to do with God? Why are all these gods removing their eyes, and when their eyes return, they're rejected or given away? The answer to these questions go back thousands of years to ancient Egypt. The first humans known to work with glass were the Mesopotamians over 4,500 years ago, who made glass beads for jewelry. The Egyptians were the next culture to use glass, but they discovered more practical uses for it. The Egyptians started making lenses for both fire starting and magnification. Museums all over the world have over 450 examples of lenses and other magnifying devices discovered from ancient Egypt. The oldest and most famous is the KnOWLedge in the British Museum that dates back 4,500 years. The Egyptians certainly had advanced building techniques, as you can see by the pyramids themselves, and they were clearly obsessed with the heavenly bodies, as the pyramids at Giza are in perfect alignment with Orion's belt. The Egyptians were also master potters, as pottery dates back much further than the Egyptians. The point here is that two lenses in a tube is a telescope, and we have a civilization that worshiped the stars, had lenses for magnification, and were capable of making clay tubes. It is certain that they wanted a better look at the gods and the wandering stars, and when they looked at Saturn, they saw an eye looking back at them. This is why God is always watching you and always knows what you do. This is why these gods remove their eyes and throw them into the water and send them on a mission, or they become their own deities. This relationship between Saturn and the eye is also why Santa is always watching you. He knows when you are sleeping, he knows if you're awake, he knows if you've been bad or good, because Santa is Saturn, the father god of the Romans who celebrated Saturnalia during the winter solstice. And the eye of God, or the planet Saturn, is always watching. Cyclops is a mythological creature that has only one eye. One-eyed characters are personifications of Saturn. Characters that represent Saturn also represent an entire cycle of the sun, whether that be a 24-hour day or an entire year. So the one-eyed Cyclops is named after the cycle of the sun, which is represented by the father god, Saturn. Chapter 6, The Stories in the Stars. The section I'm going to read because I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast once, and he was talking about this very story, and he's absolutely correct. Nobody has a clue about what this story means. And I'm about to break it down for you right now. So chapter 6 is The Stories in the Stars, and we're going to do Elijah and the Bears. Out of all the stories in the Bible and all the people who study and interpret the Bible, the one story that nobody ever seems to be able to make any sense out of is the story of Elijah and the bears. In this horrible story, some children mock Elijah for being bald, so he curses them, and God sends 2 bears to maul and kill all of the children. As absolutely ridiculous, cruel, and seemingly pointless this story seems to be, it is important, and is encoded knowledge, and it's truly amazing about what it says about ancient people. While on his way to Bethel, Elijah comes across 42 young boys. Boys mock and tease him by saying, "Go up, you bald head, go up, you bald head." Elijah continues on his way, looks back, and curses the children in the name of the Lord. Then 2 bears run out of the woods and maul the 42 young boys, and Elijah continues on, and that's the end of the story. In this story, Elijah is a personification of the sun. Hair is symbolic of the strength of the sun's rays. When the sun reaches the Tropic of Capricorn at the winter solstice, it is the shortest day of the year, or the day when the sun has the least power, no rays, or is bald. The sun then starts its journey back north to the Tropic of Cancer. So this story is marking the point when the sun starts moving north, or the winter solstice. This is why the boys say, "Go up, bald head. Go up, bald head." The bears in this story are the constellations Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, also known as the Great Bear and the Little Bear, or the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper. The Big Dipper is one of the most known and easily recognizable constellations in the night sky. The children, however, are not so easily recognizable, and again, they tell us something absolutely amazing about the knowledge of ancient people. Across the sky from the Big Dipper, right between the constellation of Aquarius and Capricorn, is a cluster of stars known as Messier 72. This cluster of stars, now known to be 53,000 light years away, is said to be a young cluster consisting of 42 known stars. Ursa Major and especially Ursa Minor appear high in the northern sky because of their close relation to Polaris, or the North Star. However, Messier 72 appears low in the sky because it falls within the band of the zodiac constellations. As the bears rise higher in the sky, the children fall lower in the sky, until the sun is at its southernmost point and the children do not appear at all. Moving on to chapter 7, I'm going to read the black cube of Saturn. The symbol of the black cube goes all the way back into antiquity. Many cultures, from the ancient Assyrians to the Hebrews, believed that all of existence, or basically the universe itself, was contained in a black cube, or made up a black cube. If God is everything that exists, and everything that exists is in the black cube, then God can be symbolized by the black cube itself. Because ancient creator gods were personifications of Saturn, the black cube became a symbol of Saturn. The black cube and its representation of God can be seen in religions today. In Judaism, they wear the tefillin, or the black cubes, on their arm and forehead as they perform their morning prayers. The tefillah worn on the forehead is worn in the same place where Egyptian gods and pharaohs wore the symbol of the snake. Both the black cube and the snake are symbols for Saturn, and in both cases, when worn on the forehead, they are symbolic of the third eye, or the all-seeing eye of the individual or of God, a symbolic bridge between the mind and God. In the Muslim faith, people travel from all over the world to make their journey to the Kaaba in Mecca to see the black stone that is said to have fallen from heaven. When Muslims arrive at the Kaaba, they symbolically become the rings of Saturn as they circle the black cube. Our institutions of law, education, and marriage are all heavily related to Saturn worship, because they are things that require commitment, and there are great consequences for failing in these commitments. Saturn is the god of judgment, commitment, and consequences, the god of fairness, but also punishment. This is why the graduates wear the black cube on their heads, to symbolize the consequences of their commitments, and to show that they have been judged favorably to advance on to the next stage of life. This is why the ring the man gives to a woman comes inside of a black cube. The ring and the black cube are both symbols of Saturn. In this case, the black cube is a symbol of judgment, and the ring is a symbol of commitment. The symbol of the black cube is often referenced throughout art, film, and music, as well as throughout the financial and advertising industries. It is often depicted in commercials, product packaging, television shows, movies, especially science fiction films, and cartoons. It is the hidden symbol that shows up everywhere, but nobody sees. Chapter 8. The magic of the colors of Ra in a bow, and how they imprison your mind. The purple crimes of God, and the violet villain. Purple is the color symbolism version of the letter combination VI, and is a reference to violence and evil. Purple is perp, which is short for perpetrator, or someone who commits a crime, and L, which is a word for God. So purple represents the crimes of God, or gods. Violet is violence, the violence, or the violet, which is a reference to the primordial goddess of the sea, the kraken, or the sea monster from the abyss, or the primordial waters, worshipped in some of the oldest known religions, that unlike the moon goddess that represents the virtues and positive attributes of the feminine psyche, the primordial goddess represents many negative attributes of the feminine psyche. The letter combination VI is the vicious and violent villain, the vile and vindictive victor, more devious and evil than the devil himself. Tyrian purple comes from tyranny and tyrant. Purple is the color that has always been associated with royalty because purple dye was very rare and so expensive it could only be afforded by royalty. It is not hard to imagine how the color of royalty became the color of tyranny. So there you have it. That's one section from each of the chapters from this book. I realize that that's not enough for you to fully understand what's going on here, but we're going to continue making these videos. We'll get better as we go too. This is the first one. I realize the quality is probably not up to par, but we're going to work on that. So if you enjoyed this, if you found anything in this video you found interesting, tell a friend about it. Click the like button. Subscribe to this channel. I literally have 0 subscribers right now. So be the first one to click that subscribe button. And leave your comments and questions down below. If I get questions, maybe I'll answer them in an upcoming video. So yeah, that's it. That's the first video. So what's up with that? All right, late.